What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by William Monroe. Will, how you doing, man?
Steve, doing all right. Tough loss there for the Eagles last night as we record on this Tuesday. You know, it's tough. You don't see too many teams going beaten, so just tough to lose a divisional game.
Yeah, I appreciate the Eagles really coming through for me. And
yeah, we talked about Terry McLaurin. It didn't work out too well for you.
No, it didn't. So that is what happens when you rely on the Eagles, isn't it?
Yeah, at least for you. I feel like you do have a bad track record relying on either defensive or them stopping a fantasy player or a fantasy player on their team for you.
Yes, that is why I rarely draft them, which is odd. It just kind of always worked out that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what can you do? Time to move on to another week, right?
Yeah, another week, and we're well in the double digits here, going in week 11 now.
Yeah, week 11. So we got 6 more weeks left for the pod because we would stop on 17, right?
Yeah, so 6 more weeks left for that, and probably about half of them will be fantasy playoff weeks, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. I was thinking today as I was putting together the trade portion of the show. Soon we'll be flipping that all to Dynasty, and we won't have redraft anymore. Deadlines.
Yeah. Only a few people with, I'm sure some trade deadlines actually added this week. Think about it. Some other ones probably next week or the week after.
Yeah. So we're shutting that down soon. Yeah, you ready? We got start sets today. You ready to jump right in?
Yeah, we got some interesting quarterback ones here.
Yeah, the first one, it doesn't look difficult on the surface, but when you factor into weather, it's going to be Josh Allen versus the Browns, Justin Fields at Atlanta, and they're talking for the potential of feet of snow in the Buffalo Browns game.
Feet. Yeah.
So do you roll and this applies to me. I got Diggs, and I don't know if I'll start him if it's going to be that bad. So, this applies to me as well. Are you willing to start Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I think unless you wait till you get to game day, right? If you are seeing footage and it is actually feet of snow, it's tough. If you have these two guys, I think you gotta try to trade one of them. Maybe try to capitalize on Fields here, just because this is a crazy scenario to have both of these players, and especially in the redraft league. Obviously you're getting the rushing upside of Fields, but even in a probably bad game for Josh Allen, he still had about 70 or 80 yards this most recent week, which really keeps his baseline up. So I think I probably still roll with Allen, but it's close. I don't think you can really go wrong with either. And if the weather is as bad as they say, come Sunday morning, wouldn't mind going with Fields.
Yeah, I think if the weather comes in like it's supposed to, I don't think I'd roll the dice, and I think I just go with Fields. A lot of confidence in how he's looked. If this was someone else, Tannehill, we were talking about next, Davis Mills, you're just more the bottom of the barrel as far as quarterbacks go. I'd probably be more leaning on the Allen side. But Fields has been really good for fantasy the past few weeks. He's got a good matchup against Atlanta. So, why roll the dice with Allen, in my opinion, and, risk a 3-0 kind of game when Fields should be just fine. So I'll take the safety that Fields would represent.
All right. Moving on from a, top 2 or 3 quarterbacks on the week, probably to more mid-tier guys, Matt Ryan versus Philly and Tannehill in Green Bay.
Yeah, this is as gross as it gets. I cannot create a compelling story for either of them. I will go with Tannehill, as I'm assuming Philly is going to play angry. Plus, you got the whole new coaching situation over there in Indianapolis, and that worked out last week, but the Raiders are terrible. So I'll stick with Tannehill. I don't expect any sort of upside from either of them. It's just more of, fearing a Philly bounce back, I guess.
Yeah, and I think maybe you have a little rushing upside there with Tannehill. Probably not a ton. We haven't
get some rushing touchdowns
this year, but Exactly, rushing touchdown, or maybe even you see him, scramble for one. He's done it in the past. I think he probably has a better shot at doing. Whereas I don't think that's really ever been a Matt Ryan's game, especially at this stage of his career. So I think I'm going to roll with Tannehill here pretty easily.
It's funny you say that because I think he had like a 30-yard run or something last week.
Yeah, and he looked like someone who has not run for 30 yards in a long time. It was a weird
play.
Wobbly run. But yeah, I think he has something like, 10 yards on the season prior to that for 7 games. So yeah, not exactly inspiring confidence on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Last one here, Will. Last quarterback one. Zach Wilson at New England. Jared Goff at the New York Giants. A battle of some of our streamers we talked about yesterday. Who do you want?
Yeah, not really thrilled with really either quarterback. I really like both defenses, the Patriots and the Jets. So I'm going to go with Jared Goff in New York. Another good defense as well, but I don't think they're as scary as going up against Belichick in New England with a young quarterback. When you have a more veteran quarterback, Jared Goff, and just I think the matchup's a little better there. I feel a little more comfortable there with Goff than Wilson.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Wilson has a worse floor, and I'd imagine the upside is similar, if not on Goff's side. So yeah, I'm with you. It's Goff pretty easily for me. How about, Will, bonus one here, Will, Josh Allen with 2 feet of snow or Zach Wilson at New England?
I'll go Josh Allen with 2 feet of snow, I think. I could see him, scrambling too. Like that's one where you're worried about Diggs, but you could easily see this just being a running game where it's Wilson, Singletary, and the other running backs running for a ton, maybe a few passes, but Allen scores 2 on the ground.
Yep, I'm with you. Yeah, so we'll move over to the running backs here. Well, PPR, Patterson versus the Bears or Jonathan Taylor versus the Eagles.
It's pretty easily JT here. The Eagles defense has been a little more susceptible to the run after losing their first round pick, Jordan Davis. And we saw it this week. That was the game plan. I think that's right now how you beat this team. You control the clock. The Washington Commanders controlled the clock for about 45 minutes of the game, roughly. They were, somewhere in that 40 to 45 range. And if you keep the Eagles offense off the field, you do that by running the ball, having long, sustained drives. And that's exactly what, Jonathan Taylor can do. And maybe he doesn't, they don't control the clock nearly as well as Washington did. But I think that is the recipe. And that's what you're going to have to try to do if you're Indy and how you're going to win this game. And just getting the carries, the touches there, and with the track record the Eagles have had the last few weeks, I think that's absolutely what you do. And I think Patterson's a decent play, especially against a not so great Bears D. Jonathan Taylor looked like the Jonathan Taylor that we all know and love last week, and I think he is the guy you got to roll with here.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I get it. Outside of last week, Taylor's been kind of disappointing. Colts as a whole been kind of messy. So I get that. But yeah, to your point, like that game yesterday with the Eagles, the Eagles were exposed, and I imagine every team that they play is going to try to copy that, I would think, which is going to end up being a problem when you have Zeke, Pollard, and Barkley all in your division there. But yeah, I'd imagine this might be a matchup that you're looking at rest of the year. Okay, what running back's playing the Eagles? Is there something I could do there? So yeah, I'm thinking Taylor pretty easily.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair there. Next up here, got half PPR Tony Pollard at Minnesota or Gus Edwards versus the Panthers.
I think I'm pretty easily going to go with Pollard here. If Zeke's out, it seems like a question we're going to be posing every week for a little while now. It's easy Pollard, but even if Zeke plays, Pollard gets work. And Minnesota looks good. That could be a very interesting game. Where Gus is coming back off the injury. Are they going to give him the, A, is he going to play? B, are they going to give him the load back? I mean, Drake has looked good, and maybe earn some of those carries that would normally go to Gus. So I'd probably rather see what his role is. if he's playing before I start him, where I'm pretty confident in Pollard at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there as well. I think Pollard's the guy. I'm a little more, I think, just on the worried about Gus side, week one back. Maybe I don't think they really give him the full workload. I think this is going to be split carries as well, but I kind of want to see how it shakes out here in the first week back. And kind of the reverse works for Pollard against Zeke. So I think pretty easily here it's Tony Pollard for me.
Okay, and final running back here, 1 PPR. Going back to that snow game here, Will. Kareem Hunt at Buffalo, Singletary versus the Browns. We'll assume maximum snow.
Yeah. I mean, either way, I think it's Singletary, the lead back. And, man, Cleveland has just not been using Kareem Hunt. It's really disappointing for anyone that has Kareem Hunt on their team. And Singletary looks to be the lead guy. He's been getting the carries. It's usually not a ton. But 3 of the last 4 games been over double-digit carries. Has been getting some targets as well. So I think he's the guy you want to see. He scored 2 touchdowns last week. They're going to have to likely rely on him with the snow, him and Josh Allen. So pretty easily Singletary until I see otherwise from that Cleveland offense and Kareem Hunt's utilization.
Yeah, I'll go with Singletary as well. I do think this could be a good week for Hunt, probably an outlier, but with the amount of running that could happen, you're probably going to use both him and Chubb. And your passes might be more kind of check down related. They might be more in Hunt's wheelhouse. So I think he could be in line for a good week, but yeah, Singletary's probably got similar upside, safer floor, just a lot less risk going overall. So yeah, him pretty easily for me.
All right. Moving over to the wide receiver position, half-point PPR. We're going to have Brandon Ayuk at Arizona or Cortland Sutton versus the Raiders.
Yeah, it's a good one. Both are pretty solid options. Given the Jerry Jeudy injury, and I don't know if we're sure he's going to be out this week. I think I go with the Sutton side regardless, just because the Raiders defense is pretty bad. And Denver's look bad too, but I imagine Sutton's going to get a lot of targets in that game. And Ayuk's been good. This past week, Kittle got like 2 targets. I think Debo only got 1. Ayuk's been getting a lot of work. But still, that's a situation where that could flip any given week, and he could be on the receiving end of 1 or 2 targets and Debo getting 7. So I trust Sutton a little bit more. I like the matchup a little bit more. And with the Jerry Jeudy injury keeping him out potentially, that's just going to mean more for Sutton. So I'm on the Sutton side.
I agree. I think, they're pretty similar, just, from what the output's going to be. It's just the floor, I think, is there a little bit more for Sutton. It's really just going to be him and Dulcich as the 2. So I don't think there's really a ton of infringement on the targets he's going to get. You hope that he's going to be able to convert more than 6 of 11 that he did this most recent week. But you'd think against that Raiders defense, that's the key. The floor's there, the matchup is there. Whereas I definitely like Brandon Ayuk this week. Arizona's not a great matchup, not as bad as as awful as the Raiders are. And he's been converting most of his targets, but like you said, I think the floor is a little lower just because it could bounce to one of the other skill players they have there in Kittle or Debo.
It's pretty bad. I might start 4 Broncos this week in our work league.
I mean, you got Cortland Sutton and Dulcich?
So no, Sutton, yes. Sutton's a lock. I think I would probably start Russ over. I have Goff on my roster, and anyone else on waivers. I'd probably start Russ, just given the matchup. I have Brandon McManus. He's been fine for kicking. And then I have Latavius Murray, who hasn't been great for fantasy. He's been okay. He's been getting the bulk of the carries. But at this point, probably like more valuable than AJ Dillon and Kareem Hunt, who I've been rolling out. Yeah. So I might end up going with 4, which is terrifying given how bad the Broncos is. So we're kind of really leaning on the bad Vegas vibes.
This is the week. Yep. If you're gonna do this is the week.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes, I guess.
Yeah. We'll see. And you may be double dipping there on on good old Latavius Murray, as we may be looking to start him
Yeah,
as well in our dynasty.
scary, very scary.
Yeah.
Next one here, Will, PPR, Devonta Smith at Indy, Garrett Wilson at New England.
Yeah, I think Smith is going to see an uptick. We're going to have a few weeks where the tight end Dallas Goedert is going to be out for Philly, so he's was kind of one of the three, and I think you're going to see maybe Quez Watkins worked in a little bit, or Dak Pascal worked in a little bit as well, but I think Devonta Smith is going to be the biggest recipient there, and we saw him get worked in a little bit as well. I mean, unfortunately, he lost like 4 points on the very last play there because for some reason the lateral counts as negative receiving yards, so he lost 17 receiving yards and a fumble on kind of that like last play fumble risky type thing. Yeah, so 17, so basically 4 points coming off his total, unfortunately. But he still had a pretty productive game, 6 for 39. You add another 14 points because he scored a touchdown. So he's looking at probably about 18 points this week. And most of that was with Goddard in there. Goddard's going to be out for what I would imagine is probably about 4 weeks, maybe more. I think they show him on the IR with the injury. It's still TBD on the shoulder. So, yeah, I think it's pretty easily Smith for me. Garrett Wilson has been great, but it's really more just worried about the New England matchup and what kind of scheming we're going to see come from Bill Belichick to shut down the best player. And that's, without Breece Hall, that is clearly Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, 100%. Just worried about the Jets overall against New England, where the Eagles, look at the bounce back, got an easier matchup. Like you said, they got her injury. I think AJ Brown was shaken up. I think they're thinking he's going to be fine, but maybe he's out there and just doesn't see as many targets as normal, and maybe some of that goes to Devonta Smith too. So, definitely with Smith on that one too.
Right, and next one we got PPR: Allen Lazard versus the Titans, Drake London versus the Bears.
Yeah, an interesting one. Lazard last week didn't do a lot, I believe, for the first time in a little while. So he'll be looking to bounce back. I got an easy matchup against the Titans. London, the Falcons offense overall not as great as it was when we were starting the season, but also get an easier matchup against the Bears. I think I would go with London. I trust his target share a little bit more. Both got easier matchups, even though the volume overall in the offense is probably less, where maybe Lazard's fine. Maybe we are starting to see the ascension of Watson. Maybe it was just a one-off for Watson. It's hard to say. So I think I'll stick with London for now. Don't mind Lazard, though.
All right, and then that takes us. I'm sorry. I'll agree with you. Drake London, I think, is pretty easy for me with the breakout there for Watson, and Lazard could come back, a little more to what he's used to seeing. But I think the Bears matchup is better from what I see, and it's just London's gotten the target share. It just hasn't really put together a ton of yards, but got in the end zone. So pretty easily London for me as well.
Okay, last question here. In the world of flex, we got PPR. DeAndre Swift at the Giants, or Mr. Sutton again versus the Raiders. Yeah,
I think it's crazy, but I'm going to lean Sutton. Swift's just not getting the carries. I think they're trying to, I don't know if it's working back from the injury, because I think he's been back for a few weeks now. He scored, but they just haven't been utilizing him a ton. Not the best matchup there against New York, so I'm going to stay with that high floor of what I expect to be one of the better offensive games for Denver.
Yeah, I agreed. Pretty easy. Denver's got the easy matchup. Swift, he's been okay for fantasy. He keeps saving it with the touchdown. He'll get like 10 yards and a touchdown. It's okay. Like you did okay. But yeah, you can't start him until you start seeing the Swift of old. So I will go with Sutton too.
Agreed. That takes us over to the trade portion here. Got a few dynasty trades and then 2 redraft trades, maybe 2 of the last ones we have this year. First up here, dynasty trade, full PPR. We've got Dalton Schultz and Michael Pittman for Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, this is a This is a tough one. Debo's utilization has not been the same this year as it was last year, which I caught out all of off season, so it's not really that big of a surprise. On the flip side, Pittman started off hot and has been cooling off, and that team's just in disarray. So from a dynasty standpoint, both are a bit on shaky ground. Schultz as well. I don't think he's get locked up a long-term deal with Dallas, so who knows what he's going to be doing long-term. I think I stick with the talent that we've seen in Debo and the offense that you trust more. But I don't mind it for either side. I get it, but I want Debo. What about you?
Yeah, I'll take the Debo side as well. I think if I'm trading Debo, it's not a bad trade, but I think I'd want just either more and or different players for a Debo. And if I'm on the Pittman side, I think that's a fair trade to if you're trying to just kind of consolidate and maybe move up a tier as the way that we're seeing both of these quarterbacks play in Indy. Neither of them seems to really favor Pittman that much, and hasn't been what we I think expected going into the year. So I think you're going to get more production as a contender there with Debo. I don't hate it if you're trading down to try to get some more players. If you're rebuilding with Pittman, it's not bad, but I feel like I'd want something different than that.
Fair enough. Dynasty PPR. I don't know how this person has the 109, but we'll say the 109 next year in a late 23 second or Chris Godwin.
It's not a bad trade for Godwin. I think this is kind of the end of the buy low window, especially after last week. I probably would want more than a 109 in a late second. And if I'm trying to add Godwin to like a team that's, in the runnings here, I probably would trade, what amounts to be a late first and a late second for Godwin. So I'll take the Godwin side.
Yep. Same for me. All the same reasons. I'd want the first to be a little bit higher than kind of back end. So Godwin for me pretty easily, I think.
All right. Last dynasty trade here, 10-team PPR. We got Chase Claypool and James Conner or Gabe Davis.
Yeah, I think I'll take the Claypool side. I'd probably look to immediately flip Conner for something. But Claypool moving over to Chicago, Fields looking better and better, and they're just starting to figure out that offense. I think dynasty looking towards next year and maybe some this year, Claypool could be something. Gabe Davis has been good, but he hasn't been as good as I think people wanted him to be. So I'm taking the Claypool side. What about you? Where do you stand?
That's a close one. I think that's a pretty fair trade. I think there's like the most kind of like pure upside with Gabe Davis because he's tied to Josh Allen for what we hope is a while. I mean, maybe contracts change that up or he hasn't produced and they want to go get somebody else to be one of the receivers there. But I think Gabe Davis is solid, whereas Claypool a little more uncertainty. But as you mentioned, we have Fields playing better and maybe that goes into next year. I believe he is due for a new contract either this offseason or next offseason. So you have the potential expiring there if he's not producing. That's a little worrisome. And then, James Conner, decent depth piece. But if you're a rebuilding team, which I imagine the Claypool side probably is, because I don't think we're going to see the best out of Claypool this year. I think if we do, it would be beyond because they keep him there. So, as you said, you probably want to try to flip Conner. I'd maybe look to get like Claypool and a pick, and unless you're going to be able to flip Conner for a pick on top of that. So I like the Claypool side. I probably would prefer something different than a James Conner there as what I'm imagining as a team that's not truly contending.
Yeah, fair. Into the world of redraft. This one is interesting. Half-point PPR Superflex. This team just lost Cooper Kupp and Dallas Goedert this week. Would you trade away Josh Allen to get Tyreek Hill and Tyler Higbee?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe if you're a team that has like a Fields or somebody else that you want to roll the dice on, it's just there's really only a few of those kind of top tier guys like a Fields, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Hurts this year. I I mean, he looked pretty solid, despite the injury. And unless we hear more injury news, I think he's going to be fine, especially in Superflex. I feel like you should be getting way more for Josh Allen. Tyreek's awesome, but as a Superflex, you're giving up Josh Allen to a team that probably already has a solid starter, so they're probably going to be elite at that position, and those other positions are a little deeper. I think Higbee's fine, but I think you could find something off the waivers that is decent. You're not going to get Cooper Kupp or Tyreek Hill level stuff off the waivers, but I think that's something you can piece together a little more, and Josh Allen makes that a little easier.
Yeah, I think I agree. I understand the sentiment behind it, but Josh Allen should be worth more than that, especially Higbee. Like, he had a good week this week, but outside of that, he has not been good for several weeks now. And maybe he sees an uptick in volume now with Kupp gone. Maybe not. So I'll stick with Allen as well. Yeah, I'll stick with Allen as well.
All right. Brings us over to our final redraft question. Got a lot of quarterback questions here. Full PPR. We've got Justin Fields and Cole Kmet. So you got the stack there. Or Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I like this. I kind of like it for both sides. If I have Kelce, and need a quarterback, I'm good making that move. I'd prefer to be the one getting Kelce. If you have Fields, I'm assuming you probably picked them up off waivers. You got another quarterback. Potentially the same thing with Kmet. Kmet doesn't have a long history of 6 at the end of this. Is what we were waiting for, but it's only been a few weeks where Kelce's, obviously we got years. So I would be pretty comfortable taking both of them and upgrading up to Kelce.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree. Like you probably picked both of these guys up in the last 3-4 weeks, maybe. You're turning them into what amounts to be at least a second round pick, probably, if not a first round pick in most leagues. And there's just such a huge advantage to having Andrews and Kelce this year versus everyone else. So I think it's pretty easily Travis Kelce here for me.
Perfect. And hey, that's going to be the last trade, and that is going to wrap up the show. Will, do you have any closing thoughts there?
Good luck, everybody, here as we are approaching the end of season already. It's crazy. We're past halfway. Got probably 3 regular season weeks left, maybe 4, depending on your league format. So get those playoff push started. Start taking a look at some of the playoff schedules of some players. If you saw the ability to make some trades, maybe you can make that kind of even trade. 2 players that are pretty even, but you're getting either better playoff schedule or trading a guy who's already had his bye week. Just kind of small moves that you can make to better prepare yourself for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So good luck here in week 11. Tune in next week, another waiver show, another start sit show. Until then, folks, trust your board.